Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 615 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our sixth book just came out. It's called I'm So Beautiful, It's Ridiculous. Unleashing and promoting strength, self-worth, and real sisterhood. So go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes& and Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, our undergraduate students on college campuses today, I have to tell you that you are not getting enough sleep. You're totally stressed out. You have tons of anxiety. And today we are going to talk about these things and what solutions are on the table for you. So please stay all the way through because I'm telling you, our next guest is going to be able to help you right away. Trupti Gokani, MD, is an award-winning board-certified neurologist, health and mindset coach, Ayurvedic expert, and master practitioner of NLP, who has dedicated her life to developing a unique blend of ancient wisdom with modern approaches. By welding these approaches, she's become a highly sought after speaker and coach, sharing holistic wellness strategies with larger than life media personalities like Dr. Oz, global pharmaceutical giants, and coaching clients from all over the world. She has been a blogger for Huffington Post and served on the faculty for the Shift Network and Metagenics. She is best known for her revolutionary integrative approach to treating migraine, one of the most disabling neurological conditions, through the Zira Mind and Body Center, which she founded in 2006. Welcome to the show, Dr. Gokani.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of
Grateful to be here.
course. It is my pleasure. I know you are a wealth of information, so you are welcome on the show at any time. And just know that I might just call you out of nowhere because
Anytime.
some story is like exploding and we need to get your input on this. All
Very
right.
happy to help as much as I can. Absolutely.
Okay. Because you're a board certified neurologist. You
Yeah.
blend this Western neuroscience with Eastern Ayurvedic medicine. I'm wondering what inspired you to bridge these two worlds, and why do you think this approach is relevant for our college students today?
Yeah. So I think back to my day and how I got into this was my own journey of challenge. First year medical school, I struggled immensely. I was ready to quit med school. I could not sleep. I went through weeks and weeks and weeks of insomnia. I was actually so close to quitting, and I said to myself, I need some help. Let's go see somebody. So I went and saw a therapist. And the question she asked me, are you stressed? Was the question. And my response, thinking I knew me in my early 20s, was no, I don't feel stressed. My life is good. I'm doing well in school. I've got some nice friends. I had a nice boyfriend at the time. My family was doing well. I did not know what stress was, nor did I know how it felt in my physical, emotional body. So I just said no. And then she worked with me a couple sessions, gave me some tools, and said, you're fine. You don't seem to have any challenges that you need therapy for. So move on. So here I was, still not sleeping and still feeling like I needed an answer and was getting closer to quitting, right? So then my dad, who's a physician,
Mhm.
took me, first he examined me, did my labs, and he's like, Tripta, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. And when you're not feeling well, you don't want to hear you're fine because you're like, cannot sleep. There's something wrong.
Mhm.
And so finally I went to see a psychiatrist. And it was within that 10-minute visit, it was 10 minutes long, he asked me 8 questions. I said yes to 6 of them. It was actually a diagnostic question for depression.
Mhm.
And are you sad? Do you have insomnia? Do you have guilt? Do you have low energy? These are classic questions that are asked for to screen for depression.
Mhm.
I said yes to 6 of the 8 because I hadn't been sleeping, so I had low energy, low concentration. I said yes to a lot of these. He said, you have major depressive disorder. Here's Prozac. I walked out of that office, first time in my life, with a prescription in hand and a diagnosis.
Mhm.
And I thought, wait a second. And I'm a first year medical student, right? I hadn't yet been in the trenches of medicine to know really what it was all about. Even though my dad was a doc, grateful to have been healthy, I really didn't need to see a physician very often. So I really didn't have that experience of being the patient. And this is my first time experiencing it. It was in that moment that I said, I've got to figure this out because I'm not taking Prozac. Like, I
Mhm.
know this isn't depression. I know this isn't depression. So I went to the bookstore. We didn't have social media. We didn't have the internet. We didn't all these amazing tools we have now. So I went to the bookstore and I found some ancient medicine books and I discovered Ayurveda. And within a month, followed some of the principles, which really weren't that hard to follow. turned myself around, sleeping again, finished med school, went on to my training in neurology, and I said, some point I'm going to bring this back into my practice. So after I finished my boards and finished neurology training, I trained in Ayurveda and brought it in.
Mm.
But it's my own challenge that brought me there, which was, I look at it like a beautiful experience because I would have never learned this ancient science if I wasn't in that situation, you know?
Wow, that
Yeah.
is unbelievable. It's so interesting to me. I wonder
Yeah.
if the solution would have been different if you had like the internet, if you had AI, I don't know,
I
like
do
other
wonder about
tools.
that.
Yeah,
And
other
because
tools.
I felt like I didn't have any bias. I was
Right.
just drawn to books, drawn to, and there wasn't someone telling me follow this protocol or follow that. And I think for everyone listening, that's the most important thing to start with is follow your intuition, follow your gut. What is it, what is your internal system saying to you? And that was the
Mhm.
first step. And here I am 54, and I'm telling you right now, I am healthier than ever. I'm on no medications. I sleep well. I'm so grateful. I
Yeah.
listened. I'm
Good
really
for
grateful.
you. That's really
Yeah.
good. We should talk about your book too. It's called The Stress RX.
Yeah.
And in there you mentioned that 75 to 90% of doctor visits are related to stress related conditions. But unfortunately, a lot of these doctors, they really don't know how to treat stress at its root at all. I don't think they cover that in med school. So why is stress so misunderstood even by medical professionals?
And you're so right on this because we should cover it in medical school, shouldn't we? Should we be
Yes.
talking about the impact of stress on the nervous system and the body? And so, speaking as a neurologist, the thing that I was most fascinated with is when I learned that. I actually learned that I had done some family practice training before I did neurology. So, it was my first year of training. I had known how stressed I was. I had known that stress created the sleep issues. I was very clear on what led to my symptoms. So seeing all these patients, these primary care patients, and saying to myself, I feel like they're all stressed out. Like they don't even know how stressed they are. Because I knew this model. Like in my back pocket, I knew Ayurveda, which we can go through what that is. But I knew it. And I was like, they're all stressed. And I'm not going to just give them a pill. So what was interesting is that I started to approach it, yet my physician friends had never known this other way of looking at an individual looking at how stress can create symptoms, digestive symptoms, headaches, you know, anxiety and fear and sleep issues. So for me, I think why physicians and don't explore is they haven't gone through their own journey.
Mm.
And I don't think we're taught on what that can present like as we're seeing patients. Let's just be frank and honest here. There's a lot of teaching on, specifically what's a pharmaceutical to use, or is there a procedure to give or to do? There really isn't this, what do we do if an individual doesn't want to take a pharmaceutical or is not interested in? What is the other option? And that little gap between symptom and disease, that's where stress shows up. Most physicians don't even have an idea on how to go into that gap and what the tools are, because if you follow the Western model, you're not going to have the solutions. You've got to look at the Eastern model. And that's where I feel so grateful that I was introduced to it in my early years. Because once you get that model, you'll see how stress shows up. And you'll have a very specific system to follow to understand where stress, how it affects you, and how it shows up physically and emotionally. It's
Mm.
very clear.
This is so fascinating. And I think, so many doctors here locally, I mean, they don't know anything about this stuff. I certainly don't. I mean, in the book, you talk about these three stress personality types. You have the windy warrior, the fiery overachiever, the earthy helper.
Yeah.
What are each of these personality types, and what does that look like in college?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way for everyone to remember it, I think of the band Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Mhm.
And when you get stressed out, you can go into one of three straight states. The windy, earthy, or fiery state. And how those show up in Eastern medicine were made up of five elements.
Mhm.
Every ancient medical system, you'll see elements, this idea of elements. Chinese medicine has different elements than Ayurvedic medicine. The idea is this connection with your own nature and yourself. Five elements in Eastern Ayurvedic. And Ayurveda, by the way, Ayur means life, and Veda is wisdom. It's the wisdom of life, the wisdom of longevity. The first time in history, our longevity rates are dropping. So we might want to look into the science a little bit more and lean into it and figure out what they're saying because it's a 5,000-year-old science. So the five elements are air, space, fire, earth, and water. All of us at birth are born into one of these three natures. If you're the air and space element person, you're what we call the Vata, V-A-T-A, Vata. That individual has a tendency, if they push themselves, to get a little too air and spacey. Okay, what is it? What do I mean by that? Well, if your head is a little air and spacey, you literally become airheaded. Like, wait, what was I just doing? What was I just saying? Wait, anxious, windy, wind blowing on you, you get a little cold, dry, right? Think about the freeze state because you're cold and dry and you're cold, you kind of bring yourself in. So neck gets tight, body gets tight, you get a little constipated, gas and bloating. Wind individuals can, unfortunately, because they're moving and going a lot, can start to get this windy physiology, windy personality. Fire is more the fire and water, the pittas. They're a little bit more muscular. Winds tend to be smaller framed. Fires, more medium frame, more like athletic, more competitive, more driven. Think of that fire. You have the ability to see things. You're
Mhm.
great at getting things done. Like you're
Yeah.
that one that's going to organize, you're going to figure out the activity to be done for the day and manage to grab five people to go with you. Like you're great. You're the CEO of the company if you're the fire.
Mhm.
Fires are great, you know? Windies also are great. They're more artistic, spiritual, moving, going. They're very creative, great at coming up with unique ideas. Not really great at organizing. The fires are great at organizing and getting it done. Too much fire, think of hot-headed, all
Mhm.
right? Getting irritable. That fight. When you think of freeze, think of the fight state. Angry, heated, a little bit too sharp with your tongue, right? A little bit nausea, reflux, heated, diarrhea. The last is the earth, the kapha, biggest body frame of the three. Tends to be more grounded, more introspective, doesn't like to be, the vata loves to be at the party with a ton of people. The kapha's like, I just want to kind of be on my own or with one or two other people. Doesn't enjoy big groups. In fact, gets depleted by them very quickly. Kaphas are more thinkers than talkers. They're going to be the ones that'll listen really well to what you're saying. The vata may cut you off 5 times. They want to keep on. The wind keeps them talking. So each of these personalities are actually determined at birth. Isn't that
Yeah.
fascinating?
So-
Then what happens? This is where things get interesting, is you're born into one of the three states. And it's hard to figure out what the state is when you're kind of trying to figure this out now. I often say, I have this quiz on my website, the stress personality quiz, because I was like, just figure out what your type is now in terms of your imbalance and then go backwards. It's like putting on this new pair of glasses. Get clarity first. So what often happens is we start to get symptoms, and that's our imbalanced. All three states can become imbalanced. Even though I'm born as a pitta, if I move and go and talk too much and travel too much and eat cold foods, I can start getting wind excess and I can start getting some tension headaches. I can start getting some constipation. And that is a classic presentation of a wind excess. And there's tools for that. But that's how stress presents. It's the disconnect from birth nature to where you are now. Simple as that, if that makes
Wow.
sense.
That
Mhm.
makes total sense to me. I'm definitely fire. There's no question about that. Uh,
And it's a
so
great,
I,
healthy thing to have fire because
yes,
you have the
yes.
motivation to get things done,
I
right?
get things done, motivated, all those things. Yeah, it just comes from within. And so once the students can identify what their stress personality is,
Yeah.
then knowing that, what steps can they take in order to get back in balance during these high stress times, like recruitment in the beginning of the semester, or finals, or leadership transitions?
Right. And this is the key. Once you figure out, okay, I'm running a little bit windy or a little earthy or a little fiery. Earthy is the more depressed, kind of like I just can't get myself motivated. And that we call the anhedonic, just heavy, negative in that mindset and that physiology.
Mhm.
Fired, as you said, is that irritable, kind of angry, outward energy, and the wind is spinning, ruminating, what ifing. It's really important to just acknowledge which state do I go into? What is my go-to physiology? And how long do I stay there? So if you are going through recruitment, you're actually going to unfortunately be pushed in a situation because of just the excitement of it, because oftentimes you're so in the state of trying to be, that your state can show up a little bit more than it needs to.
Mhm.
What we want to do is first identify, gosh, I'm really getting more anxious about this. I'm what ifing this. I'm wondering, gosh, how did I come off? Did I come off in the best way? Did I not say things the right way? You start to analyze yourself. The key thing is first acknowledging you go into state. And then the second thing is to be gentle and kind with yourself and say, I'm human. This is a natural physiological state to enter. It's actually neurologically wired. It's a reptilian brain taking us into state. So be compassionate. And then the second thing to do is once you acknowledge it and you kind of have some compassion around it, you start to then you do some things to give yourself a break from being in state, meaning that let's just say I'm a fired up. You and I are both fires.
Yes.
We're going, and I'm kind of starting to feel a little more edgy. Like I'm responding to people that a little more sharp, a little bit more angry. I'm not in my balanced me. First, I have to recognize it because it's me. You won't recognize it. I know. I can feel that. So I'm not going to grab a cup of coffee because coffee of the choices is going to make me more fired up. I might go and grab some green tea.
Uh,
I I don't know, go take a walk. Looking at green, something as simple as looking at green can help reduce your fire energy. Putting your feet on the grass, we're into grounding here. Putting your feet on the grass can get you out of the fire state. It doesn't take a lot to really move out of state. It's just acknowledging you're in state, being compassionate. Okay, I'm in state. And then taking yourself out of the state. The anhedonic kapha person, what they need most is to reach out to others and let them know they're feeling that way and ask for support. And I'm telling you, if there's someone around you that's going into a little fire or wind, oftentimes they're the people that you can actually ask support from, and you will balance them and they'll balance you. We can actually help each other in this
hmm,
because the fired up person needs someone a little bit more grounded to be around. And it's the opposites attract. In a similar way, you can bring someone in that's like, but don't hang out with another fire.
hmm,
That's not going to help
hmm.
you. You're just going to fuel each other. So, first is recognition, compassion. Second is just doing something to move yourself out of state. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I like that idea of support too, which
Yeah.
kind of brings me to the next question. Interestingly enough, fraternity and sorority members actually scored better
Yeah.
on mental health than unaffiliated students. And I think, yeah, which is really interesting to me. And I'll show you
Yeah.
the study, which is really fascinating. I think part of it is because of the support that they have. I think is really critical because if we start to see one of our fraternity brothers at Sigma Nu, like your son,
Yeah.
right? Suddenly he's not coming out of his room for 3 or 4 days. He
Yep.
hasn't taken a shower in 3 or 4 days, hasn't
Yes.
gone to classes. There are eyes on him. And so
Yes.
we know when we say, wait a minute, what's going on here? He hasn't come out of his room in 3 or 4 days. What's going on? I'm going to knock on the door and I'm going to pull him out of his shell, whatever is going on. So I
Mhm.
think that support system helps so that way we can intervene when we see something that is out of the ordinary. But if you are unaffiliated, maybe you don't have that support system. So I
Right.
think that's why it is. But you also had that 2024 study. It showed that 33% of fraternity and sorority members report symptoms of depression, 22% report anxiety, 12% actually report suicidal ideation. So I'm wondering, how does this stress personality framework that you have here, how does that help college students to support one another in their mental health?
Yeah, yeah. And first, I'm grateful to hear that there's this beautiful community support that is helping most students and when they're in
Hmm.
this organized kind of groups. One of the things that happens, I believe, is that when you look at those numbers, from that study,
Yeah.
is that there is now more recognition of the challenges students are facing. And because of the fact that they're in now this group, this organization, and they're being watched a little bit more, they're being actually kind of attended to, there's more recognition of each other's states.
Mm,
And that's helpful. But yet, at the end of the day, we know, you and I both know, that college nowadays is so different now than it was years ago. There are so many more things that these students have to face. My son, he did his interviewing for investment banking and he's in a fraternity Sigma Nu. And
hmm,
what I realized is that just getting into some clubs, a consulting club, an
hmm,
investment banking club, it is so much harder now than it was years ago. And so if you're in a fraternity, you're most likely to want to motivate each other to do as best as you can do with joining clubs, joining organizations, going to that party, showing up here, making sure you're there for that impromptu dance and you have the date. There's a lot more on your plate in general.
hmm.
And I think our world has shifted and now we're seeing these numbers come forward because there's more recognition, there's awareness, and the world is a little more challenging. It's more complicated with social media, with the demands that we're placing on each other and others. So, in some level, I think, and I was in a sorority for a short time, and I actually left the sorority because of the demands of what I needed to do to be in the sorority. I actually joined, I
Mm.
was the vice president of the pledge class. You're going to laugh at this. I was like so motivated because I'm a pitta, so I'm like,
Sure, that's what you do.
that's what you do. You become vice
Yeah,
president of pledge class. So I was
of
vice
course.
president of pledge class. And then I said, I'm leaving. And I'm like, why did you run for vice president and you're leaving? And I was like, there's just way too much on my plate. Like I couldn't do it. And that was 30 years ago.
Right.
I can't even imagine now. So
Oh,
I think there is, and you know this world a lot more than I do, but I think within the Greek system, and I mean this with my son, there's a motivation to be involved, to participate, to do
yes.
these different things. And they could be fun. I'm not saying all these things are negative. I mean, going to a fun dance at night, but finding a date or doing, that can be challenging. I mean, it could be another thing to do, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
And I think it pushes if your personality is already one that's a little windy, you know? Even if you have support, it could push a little bit more into that anxiety state. And then God forbid, there's like now we saw those numbers about suicidality. Most important thing, if anyone's hearing anything, is please lean into those around you that you feel are disconnecting. Because the way you pick up on state is you notice people, you notice they're not laughing. They're not relaxed. They're like in literally it's a reptilian brain state.
Mhm.
They're constantly obsessing about things. They're
Oh, yeah.
what if thing wondering. They're really sharp and irritable. Or like you said, they're locked in their room and not talking. So most important thing we can do is share this important information to reach out, ask them, lean in. How you doing? What can I do? Can I support you? Can we go on a walk? Can we go just get grab a cup of coffee and talk? Or just try to be there and recognize your own state first, but then even better, help someone else with theirs.
Mhm.
So I kind of digressed a little bit, but that to me is a really important thing to do.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think you're right. A lot of these fraternity and sorority members, they're just highly involved in numerous organizations on campus. They are like student body president,
Yes.
they're athletes, like,
Right.
and I'm looking at this resume. I'm like, you are involved in everything on campus.
Right.
How in the world are you balancing all of this without one of the balls that you're juggling hitting the floor? I have no
Right.
idea, including academics. Oh, let's not forget, we're supposed
And
to give
academics. Yes.
right? Like
Oh my God.
scholarship, right? So
Yes.
I'm wondering, I mean, you've also said that the brain, the gut, and the heart, all of
Yeah.
those things need to be aligned in
Yes.
order to have total transformation. So I guess I'm wondering, how does this three brain connection
Yeah.
show up in college students who are dealing with burnout or social pressures on campus?
Right. And that's after 20 years of clinical practice, running a clinic, doing coaching. I realized there's certain people that were like the super responders. They just seem to fare a lot better than others.
Mhm.
And I was like, what exactly are they doing? So I had the time of pandemic to quiet things down and go introspective, go into my kapha state because I'm a pitta kapha combo. And I went back and I researched my own practice. And I was like, who are those people that did so well? What were they doing? And I realized they were following the three brain protocols. The first
Mhm.
brain, the brain in our heads, the brain that most people think about, the central nervous system,
Mhm.
it is our executive functioning operator. It helps us see the world and create a story based on the external environment. And this is my NLP, neuro linguistic programming training comes in. This is where I did some deep dive into that and I got trained in that. All of us create a story of our reality based on our past programs, based on our parental upbringing, our generational patterns that we've carried through grandma and grandpa and all of us. We carry into this ourselves. And we can have the same external event, you and we both can interpret it a little differently based on our program. So the first brain, what I realized is a lot of individuals that were those like super responders that just didn't really seem to have the challenges that my other patients had when it came to getting through their migraines, improving their mental health, improving their overall well-being. They could reduce their medications. They were working on their first brain story. And I didn't even realize I was giving them people to read, like I was having them read Eckhart Tolle or listen to Louise Hay. These are some old school thinkers. And they were starting to shift their reality. Sounds a little Matrix, red pill, blue pill, but they're starting to like shift the way they saw their world. Where before they get up in the morning and be like, my life sucks, this is terrible, I can't believe I gotta take care of these two kids and do this, and I gotta run to this job. Suddenly they're like, I'm so grateful that I have these two amazing children. And I'm so grateful that I have employment that is a great job that's paying me well. Suddenly they came into the office feeling a little differently, and I wasn't sure what was happening. They were shifting their first brain program. And there are some
Mhm.
tools and techniques to do that. But first is just knowing we all have a story. No one's story is right. Nobody's right. We all see things differently. Okay. Yet for some of us, the story and the program is leading us down a road that is creating more challenge and putting us more into state than we need to be.
Got it. Got it.
Okay. We're interpreting things in a way that puts us into one of those three states more readily and we stay in state longer. So that's the first brain. The second is more what you're saying, the gut. It's the intuitive and the heart. The second is the enteric nervous system. And we didn't learn a lot about this in med school, but the enteric nervous system is the nervous system within the gut, 200 to 600 million neurons. The enteric nervous system, the gut, if you disconnected the gut and the brain, there's a vagus nerve that connects the two.
Mm.
Just put the gut over to the side, it would continue to operate on its own. It does not need the first brain to operate it because it has its own nervous system. Makes all the neurotransmitters in your body. Your serotonin production, 90% of it is in your gut. So before someone takes Prozac, think about your gut. And the most important thing that the enteric nervous system is doing, because it is the peripheral extension of your limbic, your feeling brain, it's down here in your gut, based on the neuroectodermal. You just look at how these parts form in our early fetal development. They're connected. We feel first, then we think. So for as much as I want to change that story and have people perceive things in a certain way with their thinking brain and not what if and get so angry, first I ask them, do you feel? Back to connecting with other students, tapping into emotions. And I do think it's hard, especially for when I work with more men and boys. I have a son, I have a daughter. And I definitely can feel into them. And when my son, something's happening, it's important to lean in. Hey, I'm noticing you're a little short, or I'm noticing you're a little, how are you feeling? How did things go with that situation? And just even dialoguing about feelings and naming, gosh, I felt disappointed. Truly, I'm disappointed. Okay, how does that feel for you? And just tapping in. It doesn't have to be a book therapy session. It should just be like a one quick conversation that
Mhm.
can get people to their feeling brain. And then trusting the gut intuition. So you walk into a room and you get a feeling from somebody. And you feel a certain way being in certain spaces with different individuals. Do you spend time in the right circle of friends or the right circle of people? Do they make you feel good? And just really paying attention to that. And if they don't, step away. Those aren't your people.
Mhm.
And then the third brain is the microbiome. That's kind of those are the 100 trillion bacteria, kind of viruses and microorganisms that are dictating how we think and feel. So really how one eats, the foods that they're eating. I'm all about go out and have a good meal. The foodies, I love
Oh, yeah.
food. And I'm all about enjoy your food. Yet I have to say, on the college campus especially, being mindful of how much you're indulging because your gut microbiome, if it's unhealthy, will change how you feel. You can get more irritable simply by carrying the wrong bugs.
Hmm.
So the heart, head, and gut, they all work in that way. And the patients and clients are doing the best. We're doing something with each of these three.
Got it. All right. All right. Something to think about for sure.
Yeah.
I have a son and daughter in college as well. So what's interesting to me is looking at the differences between men and women, and there are definitely differences. I'm sure you see it with your own kids as well. And
Yeah.
just, for men, I mean, our brains are still forming, okay?
Yeah.
Just give us a little bit of leeway. We're going to get there, but it's going to take us a little bit longer than the women, okay? We're a little bit slower because our brains are just not fully
Different. But there's
it's
actually
different.
there's anatomy here. Do you know the corpus callosum thing? The
Yeah.
women have a thicker corpus callosum that connects the right and left than men do. So when we have something that enters in, we go bing, 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 bing. There's a lot of stuff happening in here. Guys, it's a lot thinner. It's like a ding,
Mhm.
ding, answer. And it's just what it is.
It is what it is, right? So I guess, so what
Yeah.
knowing the differences, what advice do you have for
Yeah.
fraternity men versus
Yeah.
sorority women when we're talking
Yeah.
about managing that stress and burnout?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost is just to acknowledge the differences. Like men and women are just different beings, and that's okay. And men, they have a different way of operating in terms of what gives them a sense of self-esteem, a sense of feeling good, a sense of, just feeling energetically happy. It's a
Hmm.
different physiology than women. Women are more connectors, want deep dive conversations, deep. Men are kind of like, let's have a good time and go watch a football game.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's absolutely great to have both sides of a person. And some women are more into the more, we'll call it the masculine activities, and some men are more into feminine activities. It doesn't really matter what your gender is, who you are, what makes you happy. And so lean into who you are. I like to say just lean into what gives you that bliss. And if you're feeling that you aren't leaning into that right now, there's something preventing you. You're too busy. You have too many things on your plate. You're saying yes, that's we become the pleasers. The windy individual tends to become the pleaser and says yes to everybody and everything. The fire gets real perfectionistic and wants to do everything intensely and perfectly. Everyone take it down a few notches. Like
Mhm.
just take it down. Know your, but again, you have to know yourself first. Like went to the therapist and she asked me if I was stressed. And the whole reason I wrote the Stress RX is because I had no clue what stress was. I had no idea how stressed I was. I was a complete pleaser, perfectionistic, intense person that followed no rules that were appropriate. I was doing kickboxing when I should have been doing restorative yoga because I was in medical school and I had crazy hours and I had a 24/7 pager at one point. So the last thing I should be in my free time is is kickboxing. Remember Taibo?
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Remember the VHS? I'm taking us all
Yes, I had one.
for those days, my friends. We didn't have all this stuff. But so I put that, I'd come back from school and I'd do the kickboxing. And that was the worst thing I should have been doing. I mean, I was already in an intense program with competitive medical students.
Hmm.
So just know yourself first and
Yeah,
then lean into who you are and be gracious for those that are, just going through challenges. And I think
yeah.
if we do that, all of us do a little bit more of that, these numbers will come down. I've seen them
Hmm.
come down in my clinic. They'll come down definitely on the campuses.
Yeah, that's great advice. One other thing that I noticed about college students, and I think you're a great person to ask here, is they are deathly afraid of failure. And I keep telling them, I'm like, I've learned the biggest lessons in my life from failure. So I'm not afraid of it. And you shouldn't be afraid of it in college because really, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like nothing, right?
Really?
It matters when you have a family and you got a mortgage to pay. But like
Yes,
in
you have no idea what's
college,
coming.
yeah, those days are coming. But now in
Yeah,
college, like this is your time to experiment and figure out what works and doesn't work for you and to sometimes fail. Like that's how you're going to learn. And
right?
what's interesting is you encourage the readers to ask, what if this is happening for me
Yes.
instead of why is this happening to me? So, how is that simple reframe transforming how students can deal with setbacks like rejection, failure, or just academic stress?
To me, it's the most pivotal question to ask. When there's a challenge and when something doesn't go your way, okay, that's our egoic mind saying this was supposed to happen this way. We have a certain belief system. We've a certain certainty that we have in our minds that this is how the outcome should be.
Hmm.
Well, you know what? I'm just gonna get a little spiritual with you. The universe has a bigger plan for us than we think we have for ourselves. And sometimes when things happen, it's actually the biggest blessing because like when I think back to my first year of medical school and I was going to quit and I went through that whole soul searching dark night of the soul kind of whole thing, I would have never discovered Ayurveda. I wouldn't have shared it on all these platforms I've been on. I've been so grateful from being on national TV to being with like pharmaceutical companies. I was like the number one speaker for pharma companies, sharing this with doctors, like patients, of course, obviously my family. Like there is no way I would be so passionate about this if I didn't have that failure.
Hmm.
So there's no such thing as failure. It's just feedback. No such thing as failure, just feedback. And it's feedback onto what are you doing that isn't aligning with you? Why did you think that was the answer? Why did you think that that was the best next step? So if this didn't happen, if you didn't get into that club or you didn't get that job, maybe it wasn't meant for you to have. And instead of why is this
Hmm.
happening to me? Why is this happening for me? I said the same thing during pandemic. In
Yeah.
pandemic, people were like, this is either could be a global retreat or it could be imprisonment.
Yeah.
Back to first brain story. What story are you going to make out of the pandemic, right? When you're in the middle of it. I mean, there are people around me that are freaking out, like the amount of anxiety and fear and the what ifing. Did we have any control?
No,
No.
none.
And why not, I don't know, drop your shoulders. I was supposed to fly to town that day when everything got canceled. I was supposed to fly to Ohio, do a talk, fly to, do a big faculty meeting in Miami. I had like three things to do that weekend. And I was like, and quite frankly, I was running my own clinic and I needed that income to help with the clinic. But I said, you know what? We're just going to be home.
Yeah.
And I just allowed myself to be in that space, but I've practiced this for a long time, is looking at this, why is this happening for us?
Mm.
Why is this happening for us? Now look at how our system has changed completely since pandemic in terms
Oh
of
yeah.
virtual working from home. There's so much more compassion that people have for each other. Yes, mental health is a challenge, yet I believe we recognize it. We're there for each other. We're leaning in more to each other. And I think it woke up the world, to be
Yeah.
frank with you,
I think so too. I think
massively.
it happened for a reason. To your point, there are a lot of companies that emerged from the pandemic that
Yes.
never would have happened. I mean, you look at
Yep.
tools like Zoom and
Oh,
everything else that we're using every single day now. More people are working from home, living where they want to live instead
yes.
of where they don't want to live.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of positive things too that came out of it. Certainly a lot of negatives. No one's going to deny that.
Or
But
the
also good
losses.
things. So. So interesting, man. We could talk about this forever. I think we need to talk about it over lunch because we are both foodies. This is the
Oh,
beauty
get me
of,
hungry. Getting close to
yeah,
lunchtime.
now I'm starting to get hungry because we're going to start talking about food. And,
Yeah.
I know you're in that Glenview, Illinois area.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, where do you go for some really great food?
Okay, I'm gonna start with like I know you said healthy, and I'm all about healthy because the gut microbiome, we gotta protect it. But
You gotta.
we gotta have some fun once in a while. Have like a really fun meal. So I have two favorite pizza places,
All
okay?
right.
Because you gotta come to Chicago, you've got to have good pizza. Come on. You
So
gotta
where
have
are
some.
you going? Where are you going for this pizza?
Okay. And I don't know if this is out on the East Coast, but Lou Malnati's, do you
Oh,
guys
of course. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so Lou Malnati's originally for a while, like I was really based in certain few places, and I would ship this like to my sister in Myrtle Beach because the Lou Malnati's pizza. But Barnaby's, I don't know if you have Barnaby's pizza.
Never had Barnaby's. Never.
Okay, it's a unique. I mean, the place has not been remodeled. It's really close to Glenview. You look at Barnaby's Pizza.
Yeah.
The place hasn't been remodeled, I think, since like the 1960s, but it's got that vibe. You walk in there, it's dark, it's cool, thin, crispy, amazing pizza. I think they use corn in it.
Uh-huh.
And the jalapeno, I love it. You can get a pitcher of beer, have a pizza. It is like thin and amazing, incredible pizza. So Barnaby's, you got to visit when you're in Chicago
All
and
right.
in Glenview. Let's get healthy now. In terms of healthy, I'm so grateful that we have so many healthy options. And I'm going to give you some finds that you typically wouldn't know about. Okay. There's one, it's an Armenian grill.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Hmm.
The best kebabs, the most incredible, like different kinds of sides, cabbage salads, like incredible, like hummus and baba ganoush. The owner was a previous pastor, and mom makes the baba ganoush fresh, like it's
Oh,
fresh eggplant.
delicious.
Like I'm getting hungry thinking about it. And you just grab this meal. It's so cost effective. It's affordable. Siunik. Got to give them a plug because they're amazing. Scenic and the incredible people that run it.
Yeah.
In terms of like kebabs, Adam Kebabs is another one
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
incredible. Healthy, fresh, family run, incredible business. Okay. Just incredible people and great food. And then there's a vegan cafe, Alice and Friends. And it's in the Glen. Glen is like a fun little area downtown, like near downtown Glenview,
Yeah.
and the most incredible vegan food. And then my last final recommendation, because I love pho, actually, I have two more. Pho is Basu. Basu has the most incredible, just a really yummy pho, and you put your own ingredients in there and mix it all up. They have different versions. They have a tofu one, they have a chicken one, all different kinds. So for pho, and then my very, very last, Moksha Indian Grill. I want to eat now. You can see I love food. Moksha Indian Grill, like from cuisine all over India, incredible. I can go on and on because I just can
I
name
love
10.
it. I
I'm
love it.
stopping right
See,
there.
I could tell you're a foodie because you had like six restaurants. You're like, I
You
go to
told me
this
like
one,
three
this
or
one,
four.
this one, this one.
I found two more while we're talking. I'm gonna stop. I mean, my mom was a phenomenal cook. God bless her soul,
Good.
she passed. But she was a home economics teacher,
Yeah.
in Africa where we lived. And I'm Indian of origin, but was born in Africa.
Yeah.
She made the most incredible food. So
There you
enjoy your food.
go.
I love to
Listen, we
eat.
have very similar tastes in food, so we would agree on all of this. I would go to every single one with you, and I'd have a blast,
Awesome.
and it would
When
be
you're in town,
fantastic.
give me a call. We'll go. We can visit them all.
Yes, we'll do the tour. Might take us a week, but we'll get the each
That's
one.
okay. Love to eat. That's all good.
All right. So if our listeners
Yep.
enjoyed this, which I know that they did, and maybe they want to take your stress personality quiz, maybe they want to go and buy your book. It's called The Stress RX.
Yeah.
Where should they go to do all of these things? And what insights can they get?
So step one, they can go to my website,
Mhm.
truptigokanimd.com. That's my website, my first and last name, truptigokanimd.com. The quiz is right there. You click the button, quiz, and you take the quiz about 5 minutes, and you'll
Okay.
get a report. You'll get your final answer. Are you windy, fiery, earthy? There'll even be a little bit of a video that'll pop up that'll go into more detail. It's about 5 minutes. I encourage watching the video. That alone, that alone would just be so incredible for me to share the wisdom of ancient medicine, 5,000-year-old medicine to you to connect with your state. So start with that. On the website, I do have podcasts, other podcasts, other shows and things that I've done. If you're inclined to look at some of those and watch some of those, just learn. I have so many, each of, like yourself, we have so many great conversations and just listen and learn about how these conversations have evolved in different ways and how different communities have really benefited, from this knowledge. And of course, I have two books actually. The first one's A Mysterious Mind. That was in 2015, a
Hmm.
little bit more migraine and Ayurveda focused. And then the second book is The Stress RX, and that's a little bit deeper of dive of why we stay in state, why we get stuck there, and little take home points at the end of each chapter. If you don't want to read the whole book, end of each chapter, little take home points. just do the practices at the end of each chapter. And that alone can really reduce, I think, your need on physicians and the healthcare system, and start to empower yourself to get to know who you are and be your best version of you so you can go out there and live an amazing life and do incredible things. That's what I want for
Fantastic.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, great resources. And I highly recommend every college student go to the website, take that stress personality quiz, go and buy the book, listen to all the podcasts. That's why we do this stuff. We just offer it for free because we just want to help and get you to learn stuff that's out there. And there's plenty of people that want to help you. So go to
Oh,
the website. I'll spell the website for you. It's TruptiGokanimd.com, TruptiGokaniMD.com. Go to the website, go take that stress personality quiz, if nothing else, and just watch the video. Okay. That in alone would be a fantastic way to start. And so I really appreciate it, Dr. Gokani. I think you're fantastic. I thank you for the work that you do, and all the best.
thank you. Same to you. And thanks for all the listeners. I want
Of
everyone to be
course.
happy and healthy. So be well.
Yes, we love our listeners. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, I want you to like it and I want you to share it with other college students on your campus. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.